It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from the United Nations in New York. Our top story. Stop Putin now or pay later. Zelensky's warning to the West.
It must be done, and it must be done now. Otherwise, Putin will keep driving the war forward wider and deeper.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10 tonight, the FBI says anti-law enforcement slogans were written on bullets used in a fatal attack in Texas. The UK's deal to tackle illegal migration sees a family of 3 legal asylum seekers arrive in the UK from France. Plus, the NASA astronauts heading to the moon talk to Sky News about the space race with China.
We're just going to pursue excellence, like I talked about before. That's how you win a space race, and that's just how you move our countries forward.
We'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening from the United Nations in New York, where President Zelensky has warned world leaders that they must stop Russia's war in Ukraine now or pay later. He was speaking after President Trump signaled a huge shift in U.S. policy, suggesting that the friendly relationship he thought he had with President Putin didn't mean anything, unfortunately, and Ukraine could take back all of its territory. The Ukrainian leader told the UN General Assembly in New York that if left unchecked, Moscow would expand the conflict. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn reports.
He is once again the focus of attention. All eyes on President Zelensky at the UN. After Donald Trump's U-turn, saying Ukraine has a chance of victory in its war with Russia.
Do you believe you can win the war with Russia? Can you beat Russia now with American support?
Whatever Trump is saying, though, Ukraine's leader was reserving judgment. Earlier in the hall above, President Zelensky urged the world to halt Russia's aggression and the spiralling drone arms race it's unleashed.
We must use everything we have together to force the aggressor to stop. And only then do we have a real chance that this arms race will not end in catastrophe for all of us. If it takes weapons to do it, if it takes pressure on Russia, then it must be done. And it must be done now. Otherwise, Putin will keep driving the war forward wider.
And he made this claim about divine intervention and the US president that won't lose him any favor in the White House.
Weapons decide who survives. Excellencies, yesterday President Trump stood right here in this hall, and God saved him from a murder attempt during the campaign.
After his speech at the UN yesterday, Donald Trump surprised the world by saying for the first time that Russia might lose the war. It's been seen as a major change of heart from a president whose sympathies have seemed so often to lie with Moscow.
Donald Trump's apparent pivot on Ukraine is the talk of the UN General Assembly, but Western diplomats are urging caution. This president has been so erratic on the conflict, they say. He must be judged on his deeds and not his words.
As US Secretary of State Marco Rubio was meeting his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, the Kremlin was shrugging off the US president's withering description of Russia's military as a paper tiger.
Russia is certainly not a tiger. After all, Russia is more associated with the bear. There are no paper bears. Russia is a real bear. Putin has repeatedly and with varying degrees of emotion described our bear. You can recall this for yourself.
Every UN General Assembly has its moment. This year it belongs to this man, the jihadi turned statesman and revolutionary new leader of Syria. Ahmad al-Sharaa finished his speech focusing on the other war of our time, the conflict in Gaza.
We stand firmly with the people of Gaza, its children and women and all peoples facing violations and aggression. We call for an immediate end to the war. In conclusion, the Syrian story has not come to an end. It continues to write a new chapter entitled Peace, Prosperity and Development, and may the peace of God be upon you.
For both Gaza and Ukraine, in truth, it's the same this year at the UN as any other. For all their fine words, it's what leaders actually do next that matters, if escalating conflict is to be averted.
Well, let's bring in Dom, who joins me here live now. And Dom, I mean, when you think about where Ukraine was 24 hours versus now, we have seen this shift. We have to be cautiously optimistic, but Volodymyr Zelenskyy was sticking to the message. He wasn't allowing this distraction of Donald Trump saying you could win back territory, get in his way.
As he went past us down to the basement of the building, you know, you could see, as I said to him, do you now think that victory is in sight? Do you believe you can win the war now? And he turned and he was slightly tempted to answer it, and then he carried on. And he seems to be a leader who's not going to take anything for granted. He must be encouraged by what Donald Trump has said. He does seem to, the American leader, have shifted now away from Moscow, more towards Kyiv. But as I said in that report, you know, the Western diplomats I've been talking to in the corridors sort of surrounding the meetings of this week are saying, you know, let's take it step by step. Let's see what actually happens. Judge this president by his deeds and not his words.
Yeah, indeed, very much so. Dom, thank you so much. Well, we'll be assessing the developments here in New York over the coming days, as well as the conversations around Ukraine, Gaza and other issues continue. But for now, Anna, back to you in the studio.
Yelda, thank you. Let's head to Texas now, where one person has been shot dead in an attack on a field office of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, known as ICE. The FBI says ammunition recovered from the scene in Dallas was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. 2 people shot are in a critical condition. The gunman, 29-year-old Joshua John, reportedly died from a self-inflicted bullet wound. Our U.S. correspondent David Blevins has more.
Agents sweep the firing point, a rooftop overlooking an immigration field office in Dallas, Texas.
3 people shot, multiple people shot.
Having opened up from here, the shooter was found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The FBI is leading the investigation, and with tension high over immigration, it says the evidence points to an ideological motive.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature.
FBI Director Kash Patel posted a picture of unspent bullet casings from the scene, one engraved with the words anti-ICE. Law enforcement raided this home at Fairview, Texas, one of several associated with the gunman. He's been named as Joshua John, a 29-year-old registered independent, previously convicted of delivering marijuana. It's the 3rd attack in 2 months on immigration customs enforcement in Texas. The vice president blaming it on rhetoric from Democrats.
If you want to stop political violence, stop attacking our law enforcement as the Gestapo. If you want to stop political violence, stop telling your supporters that everybody who disagrees with you is a Nazi. If you want to stop political violence, look in the mirror. That's the way that we stop political violence in this country, and we've got to do it.
ICE agents have been rounding people up across America, enforcing Donald Trump's push for mass deportation. Their controversial tactics sparking protests and heated debate in an already charged political atmosphere. It's just 2 weeks since the assassination of the conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah. And again, America is confronting just how often political difference is turning into political violence. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
A family of 3 have become the first asylum seekers to arrive in the UK as part of the government's one-in, one-out deal with France. It's as 4 migrants who arrived in Britain on small boats were sent back across the Channel over the last week. Well, our correspondent Olivia Guthrie is here with me. Described by the Home Office as critical first steps. Do we know much about this family?
Actually, we know very little. They're a family of 3 and they include a small child, but that's really all that we know. They are the first arrivals to make the most of this new legal route that has been brought in for claiming asylum in Britain as part of this one-in, one-out deal with Britain and France that was signed back in July, where people who come over on small boats are denied access to the British asylum system and are then deported to France. And then in exchange, we take the equivalent significant number of migrants who can then claim asylum through what the government would say is the legal, proper channels. Now, 4 men have been deported under this scheme so far. One Indian, an Eritrean and an Iranian man deported last week. And then on Monday, an Afghan man was deported as well. And now this family of 3 have come to the UK to claim asylum. So essentially, Britain has got 1 slot left to fill still with these migrants under this pilot scheme. Now, the Home Office have issued a statement today. They say that the UK-France deal is a historic agreement and these are critical first steps. This is a clear message to people smuggling gangs that illegal entry into the UK will not be tolerated. But with more than 32,000 people making that crossing over the channel so far this year, and with several cases still being battled out in the High Court to try and stop some of those people being deported, whether 4 people going to France and 3 people coming here will make any difference to deterring people who are determined to make that dangerous journey, or the people smuggling gangs who are determined to profit from them doing so, certainly remains to be seen.
Olivia, thank you. A super typhoon which caused the deaths of 17 people in Taiwan has made landfall in China. Typhoon Ragusa swept through the northern Philippines on Monday and Taiwan yesterday. In Taiwan, heavy rain caused a barrier lake in Hualien County to overflow, causing damage to a bridge and sweeping vehicles away. Well, the typhoon has now hit southeast China, while Hong Kong has issued its highest possible typhoon warning. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ansmith has this.
Imagine facing this. The sheer power of the water and the panic. Typhoon Ragusa bore down on Hong Kong in the early hours of the morning. A super typhoon that brought lashing wind and rain and left swathes of this city underwater. In Taiwan, the impact has been devastating and deadly. Here, a natural dam burst its banks, sending torrents of water smashing through homes. Residents left to cling and to hope. Rescuers were the only lifeline for many, and they are only just beginning to assess the damage, count the cost, and reflect on their lucky escapes. We had no idea the water was coming, says this man. Only when it flooded did we realise. It scared us to death. If you didn't escape within 5 or 10 minutes, you would have been swept away. The Philippines was also hard hit. Floods and landslides claimed lives in remote and hard-to-reach places. On mainland China, streets stood shuttered. More than 1 million were evacuated here. Many others heeded warnings to stay home. Thousands of businesses like Mr. Lee's forced to close.
It has a big impact. We can't do business. No one comes out. We can't do business. It's difficult.
Next door over tea, neighbours said they are well practiced for storms, but this one was cause for concern.
It made us quite nervous, actually, because they said it would make landfall here. The government was well prepared. They sent people out to check preparations.
In the end, the damage done in this part of China has not been as bad as many feared, but the power of Ragusa has still brought multiple megacities to an almost complete standstill with all the economic toll that that takes. And it matters because both the intensity and the regularity of this type of storm is increasing. This is the 9th typhoon so far this year in a region that would normally average about 6.
Winds had barely dropped here before the cleanup began. This operation, a well-oiled machine. Ragusa continues its path west towards Vietnam. Its destruction is not yet done. Helen Ansmith, Sky News in Zhuhai, Guangdong Province.
Israel's military is reported to have pushed further into Gaza City as it continues its war against Hamas. Palestinian medics say at least 22 people, including 9 children, were killed in Israeli strikes there. Israel says the strikes targeted 2 Hamas militants and that its forces try to reduce harm to civilians. Well, the ongoing war in Gaza has prompted calls for Israel to be banned from sporting events. A UN human rights panel this week called for FIFA and UEFA to suspend Israel from all international football. And our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has been speaking to a West Midlands MP who wants an upcoming match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv to be called off as well.
Unable to stop the Israeli football champions playing, they protested today in Greece, with heavy policing to protect Maccabi Tel Aviv's 120 fans at the Europa League match, amid intensifying calls to expel all Israeli teams from international football competitions. A group of United Nations advisory experts saying sporting sanctions are needed after a UN Commission of Inquiry said Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. Accusations denied by Israel as it wages war on Hamas 2 years since the October 7th atrocities.
I think that when we talk about teams, national teams, not individual athletes, of states that are subject to valid claims of genocide, this is for sure a red line.
Pressure now from Aston Villa's local MP to call off their match against Maccabi Tel Aviv here in November.
I think Aston Villa ought to take the high moral ground and refuse to play with Maccabi. I understand, look, they want 3 points, but there is also this moral argument. My concern is around the safety of the local businesses, the local community.
It would be unprecedented for Aston Villa to boycott this match, and there are no indications the club will be taking such action. This is an issue waiting for direction from UEFA, from FIFA. And I do understand at the highest levels of European football, there are discussions about Israel's status and whether or not there should be a ban imposed. Israel's Football Association declined to comment, but lawyers have been fighting attempts to exclude the country from sport.
It's very unfortunate that there is destruction during a war, but the Israeli Football Association and Maccabi Tel Aviv are not responsible for that destruction. It does strike Jewish people perhaps to a considerable extent because many of us recall that the Nazis started with boycotting Jews. And when we see this happening again, we really do start getting nervous.
One country banned by UEFA is Russia. Since 2022 and the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. That's because of European sides refusing to play against Russians and safety concerns if they did. It's understood European football chiefs are now starting to hear of teams not wanting to play Israeli opposition. And the governing body has started to speak up against deaths in Gaza. And whether football should take a moral stand against Israel and whether it can legally is still being discussed. Rob Harris, Sky News, Birmingham.
A woman living with an incurable brain disease due to an NHS operation when she was 3 years old has told Sky News she is living with a death sentence. The surgery implanted parts of a dead body into her spine and was meant to improve and prolong life. But 40 years on, the consequences of the treatment could prove fatal. Now there are concerns for hundreds of other patients who had the same procedure. Our health correspondent, Ashish Joshi, has this special investigation.
Living with a death sentence is the only way I could describe it.
Natalie has an incurable brain disease that could kill her.
Where are the scribbles?
She became infected after a childhood NHS operation using parts taken from a dead body, a procedure used for over 25 years. Nobody knows how many other patients were infected. Many could have died without ever knowing.
I want to know why I've got this problem. And that is probably makes me more angry than anything, than actually having to deal with this condition.
Natalie has been diagnosed with iatrogenic cerebral amyloid angiopathy, or ICAA. She was born with a gap in her spine, and her mum, Maureen, was told she needed surgery. Natalie was given a dura mater graft. The membrane collected from dead bodies is supposed to protect the spinal cord and the brain, But over time, proteins can build up and cause plaques, leaving patients at high risk of diseases like Alzheimer's and vulnerable to strokes and brain hemorrhages. One pharmaceutical company produced nearly 1 million of these grafts before they were banned. I'm on my way to Boston to meet Steve Greenberg. He's a professor of neurology at Harvard and one of the world's leading experts in CAA. And he's also one of the few people in the world who is qualified and informed enough to talk about the new form of this condition.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Boston.
Specialists, including Professor Greenberg, have now set up an international register to identify new cases. Advancements in MRI scanning have made recognizing this disease easier.
When I was in medical school, one of my professors said the I stands for I, the doctor, caused the problem. And in the case of iatrogenic CEA, this is kind of a heartbreaking echo of an era when it appeared that a good neurosurgical procedure was to use tissue from human cadavers to close defects in the nervous system. But the hope is that we're talking hundreds, and again, that's each one is a tragedy.
Researchers are keen to stress that doctors were acting on the best scientific evidence at the time to improve patient lives. The Department of Health told us concerns around ICAA, including new forms of transmission, were being investigated. Natalie had her operation at Great Ormond Street Hospital. It's likely that at least hundreds of patients would have undergone the same procedure. Following our investigation, its medical director, Dr. Saifi Varadkar, told Sky News, "We understand that this situation may be deeply worrying for former patients who believe they could have been affected. For any of our former patients who think they may have been affected, we will support you with getting access to your medical records to allow you to discuss your concerns with your current doctors." The Department of Health told us the Advisory Committee on the Safety of Blood, Tissues and Organs is currently considering this issue with a view to providing further advice to governments. We encourage anyone with concerns about historical treatment to speak with their GP or specialist healthcare team for appropriate support and guidance. Natalie's family have now suffered another devastating blow.
It's very heartbreaking for her because never in a million years would you dream that would...
Two of your children.
Yeah.
In the 12 months of following her search for answers, she's learned her younger brother Neil has also been diagnosed with ICAA. Neil had surgery for spina bifida in 1980. His condition is rapidly deteriorating and he is no longer able to work. Scientists are working on a cure, but Natalie knows she'll probably not live long enough to see if one is ever found. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Let's bring you some breaking news, and that is that a second airport in Denmark appears to be closed because of drones. You might remember on Monday, Copenhagen was shut because of 2 or 3 large but unidentified drones flashing their lights close to the runway, which closed that airport. This time it is Aalborg. We've had a statement from police in North Jutland, where this is. As you can see, it's the northern part of Denmark. Drones have been observed near Aalborg Airport and the airspace is closed. The police are present and investigating further. And as you can see, Flight Radar, the flight tracking service, suggesting that 3 inbound flights to Aalborg have been diverted. There was also an incident on Monday at Oslo Airport. Today, Norway's Foreign Minister says they've not been able to connect the incidents in Copenhagen and Oslo. Clearly, there is a great deal of concern now about how easy it is to shut down a commercial airport. We will watch and wait and see if we get more information on this story. Now, British scientists say they believe they found a way to slow the progress of Huntington's disease for the first time. The Mayor of London Apologies. The Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, has responded to criticism from President Trump by describing the US president as racist, sexist and Islamophobic. Yesterday, in front of the nations of the world at the UN General Assembly, Mr Trump described Sir Sadiq as a terrible mayor and warned that London wanted to go to Sharia law. Here is the London Mayor's response.
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic. One of the things about having a special relationship, it's akin to having a best friend. I think when you have a best friend, you should expect more from them. It's very different to an acquaintance or somebody who's just, a distant friend.
Yes, apologies. Let's return to those British scientists who say they believe they found a way to slow the progress of Huntington's disease for the first time. The illness kills brain cells. It resembles a combination of dementia, Parkinson's and motor neurone disease. Well, experts at University College London tested a new gene therapy, which is delivered by brain surgery, and say it slowed the progress of the disease in 75% of patients.
The gene therapy is a permanent treatment. It's a single shot. It works forever. And the data has shown a 75% slowing of disease progression in early symptomatic Huntington's disease. And having worked in this field for over 30 years, this news is fantastic. It's what we've all been working towards. And it's great for our patients and families because it's a massive effect.
A large sinkhole has emerged in Bangkok, destroying a road and damaging nearby buildings. This footage shows the moment of the collapse, which caused electrical sparks and damaged water pipes. Officials say they believe the sinkhole was caused by the construction of an underground train station nearby. The first American astronauts to be sent to the moon in more than 50 years have told Sky News it is very important that they win the space race against China. NASA is under pressure from US politicians to be the first to return to the lunar surface, but China is increasingly confident in its own programme. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore reports.
These are the faces of the new space race. The 4 astronauts due to head to the moon as soon as February, the first time humans have left the relative safety of Earth's orbit since Apollo 17 in 1972. They'll loop around the moon on a 10-day mission, preparing the way for a lunar landing in 2027. And they carry the weight of NASA's and the White House's determination that America will beat China back to the surface.
How do you feel about your role in Space Race 2.0? Do you sense that weight of expectation?
We've definitely listened to that, and we understand, why there's this perspective of a race and the benefit to just having that realistic viewpoint of what's going on in the world. We're just going to pursue excellence, like I talked about before. That's how you win a space race, and that's just how you move our countries forward.
3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1.
Their rocket and capsule have only flown once before, a test flight that looped around the moon without anybody on board. The astronauts were due to repeat the mission last year, but problems, including with the critical heat shield, delayed a human launch until now. It'll take the crew over the far side of the moon that always faces away from Earth.
We could see parts of the moon that never have had human eyes lay upon them before. And believe it or not, human eyes are one of the best scientific instruments that we have. Our geologists are beyond excited for our eyes to look at the moon, and we've been training how to turn those observations into tangible science for them.
The astropolitics in the new space race loom large. China has already beaten the US to land a robotic spacecraft on the far side of the moon, and it wants to put taikonauts on the surface by 2030. It matters who's first.
If China is to sustain a significant presence on the moon in the century to come, I would expect the United States and India and perhaps Europe as well to do something similar, to say, hey, don't forget about us, we're here as well. And if you want to develop rules and best practices in space, you can't do it without us.
It's one small step for man.
The world was transfixed by the grainy images of the Apollo missions. NASA hopes the new Artemis space program will give a new generation a front row on history, with humans back on the surface, this time to stay. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the political commentator, Adam Bolton, and the Daily Mail's Whitehall editor, Claire Ellicott. Welcome to both of you. And among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front of the Metro, its headline, Sadiq Khan says Trump must have a crush on me. That and plenty more, of course, when we come back.